Welcome to another podcast. In this episode, we're going to be applying the two simple interest formulas that we talked about in the previous video to solve a word problem example. So let me just remind you of what those formulas were. If I want to find the future value of a simple interest account, then I'm looking at this formula. A couple of things about the formula. The rate R is the rate as a decimal, but it's going to represent a percentage. So for example, if R is 5%, then the value that you would put into the formula would be R equal to 0.05. So you think of them as being percentages, but in terms of the formula, you're going to enter them as decimals. The time here is always going to be in terms of years for a simple interest problem. And P, of course, is the principal amount, and A is the future value. All right, the other formula that we had was that the total interest earned or owed is going to be PRT, where R and T are the same, P is the same, I is the total interest, either earned or owed. Okay, let's jump into the problem. One of the things I recommend that students do when they work on finance problems is list all the important variables and figure out exactly which ones you know and don't know. So as I read through this, it says in order to pay for tuition, a student takes out a simple interest loan for $9,250. So the loan amount is the principal amount of the loan, $9,250. This is the initial amount borrowed. Now, that tells you exactly, since it's the initial amount, that tells you exactly that that's the principal amount that we're looking at. Next up, it says for 8 months. That gives you the time span. So T is going to be equal to, you can't write 8, because if you wrote just 8, that would say 8 years, since the variable T is in terms of years. So 8 months is 8 out of 12 months, which is the same thing as, I guess if you divide by 4 there, you get what, 2/3? So T is 2/3 for this problem, 2/3 of a year. All right, the next thing you encounter is it says that the rate is 6.25%, but we're going to write that as a decimal, 0.0625. And then in question 1, you're asked to find the total interest, and in question 2, you're asked to find the future value. So this is a description of all the variables for this problem, which ones we know and which ones we don't know. So let's start with the first question asked, which is what is the interest total? So the total amount of interest is $9,250, principal times rate times time. All right. So at this point, we go to the calculator, and we've got principal times the rate times the time. All right. That gives us, now since we're dealing with money here, it's best to round to 2 decimal places. So that's going to give us $385.42. So the total amount of interest is $385.42. That's the total amount of interest. In this case, the context is we're going to owe that amount. So the student owes $385.42 in interest. So the future value of the loan would be the total amount paid, in this case over the course of 8 months, the total amount that we would end up paying back. So I'm using the future value formula here, is the principal times 1 plus the rate times the time. And I could just come up with a value here, but it's pretty, at least I hope it's pretty obvious to you that the future value is simply just going to be the amount we started with plus the amount that we owe. And that's sort of that third formula here, which is the account size is always equal to the principal plus the interest earned or owed on the account. And so regardless of which way you decide to do this, you're going to get the same value here. And so I'm going to take $92.50 plus the interest I earned, which is $385.42. And so $9,635.42. And that's the exact same amount you would get for both. And so if you go through the step of finding the total interest like we did in part 1, then you have two options for how to find the future value. You can use either of these two formulas to go ahead and find that. So this is one type of simple interest problem that you will be exposed to, and that is being able to come up with the interest owed or the interest owed or earned. Because if we're investing money, then we're going to be earning the interest. Here we're borrowing money, so we're going to owe the interest. And then also being able to find the future value of the account, which if you're investing in something, the future value of the account is the size of your account, the amount of money you have. And if you're borrowing money, the future value of the account is the amount of money you owe. So it has different connotations depending on the scenario that you're in. All right, thank you for watching.